Good morning, class. So we just have 35 of you so far. So let's allow 3 minutes for others to join. Can you please put a notice on your platform, calling them to join? It's a series of. So how many are we in the class? Shay?
Yes, sir, we are 63 on the call at the moment, sir.
Is that my question?
Okay, we have over 100 people offering this course, sir.
So please reach out to them that I'm in the class. I don't want to leave anyone
Okay,
behind. So if we are enforcing attendance now, it will look as if the lecturers are wicked. So how can less than 50% attend a class, for God's sake? Hey, please call me personally while we wait for others. Let me have a chat with you. Call me on your phone.
Okay, sir.
So we have 71 now, which is progress. So I think it's fair, it's good enough for us to start. Good morning, class. Happy New Year to you all.
Same to you, sir.
I already started personal income tax with you. I took a class and then Dr. Bayemi took over. And I understand that he has taken you through personal income tax. So I'm just going to speak through personal income tax this morning. Then in our subsequent classes, we will be having discussion of some key areas, key aspects, and concepts. But mainly, I already told you that the ongoing tax reform is going to change the face of personal income tax to a very large extent. So you need to understand where we are now and where we are migrating to. So if you don't have a good understanding of how personal income tax works and the challenges, arising from the current framework, you are not likely to understand the new framework. So ultimately, the goal is to take you to the new framework with the understanding of the past and the present. Let me mention the second assignment. The second assignment that you are going to have is going to be in form of essay writing. And you are going to have the liberty to choose what you want to write on. So as I'm teaching you, if there's anything that is of interest to you, note it, craft a topic around it. We are going to ask you to share your topic at some point and then give you a timeline within which to submit. So I encourage you to take this seriously because 40% of your exam will be, of your grading will be on assignment or test. But because we are doing online, it may be impractical for us to bring you back to school to write, but I think this should work well. Basically, we want you to develop interest in a small aspect so that you can see what knowledge can do when you focus on a particular thing. So having said that, okay, I think I'm able to share now. Yeah. I guess you can see the screen now. Let me enlarge it. Very good. So we are looking at taxation of income of individual. You have seen the definition of individuals. Okay, it includes family, it includes community. There is a controversy on family income relating to the ongoing reform. And some northern professors who claim to be tax experts said, oh, they are trying to tax. They just totally misconstrue it. They said we are bringing back capital transfer tax. Okay, so you may want to know what that professor is saying relating to taxation. And they said in Sharia, you cannot do it, that it's an attack against Sharia. I want somebody who is a Muslim to dig into this small controversy and do a write-up on it. So it's an income of individuals with broad meaning, with broad definition. So that if they want to tax me, I say, oh, it belongs to my wife, or it belongs to my child. So there is a wide definition of individuals to it as an anti-avoidance strategy. So this tax study group described it as very complex and the least productive. So currently we are trying to make it one of the major revenue income for state governments in Nigeria. You will understand the reform later. Even in Lagos, the Lagos that we praise so much, very few people are still on the database compared to the people that are liable. And come to think of it, and somebody can also do a write-up on this, especially somebody who likes technology. Let's say your objective is to track the income of everybody whether big, small, high, low, rich, poor, and you want to do it in such a way that they are not able to escape. Why? Because before you can tax income, you must be able to track it. And you must be able to track all activities that give rise to income. So if an income is too low, you can say, oh, let's leave this on the principle of de minimis. And you can say, oh, let's begin to tax people from this threshold. Okay? So with these challenges of income tax, how can we use technology to ramp up the administration to make sure that those that we want to tax are brought into the tax net and they are not able to escape? At the end of the day, it may be just 20% of the people because of the prevalence of poverty. Okay? So we looked at the applicable law, and I said item 59 of the exclusive legislative list vests taxation of income on the National Assembly. And we looked at this case where the law of Rivers State on income was set aside, was voided. When we look at the statute, the main statute is Peter. Then we have this this subsidiary legislation, and the last one is withholding tax regulation 2024. So we look at the historical background. We said it used to be regional. Okay. Then because of issues of double taxation or concern of double taxation, the central government initially started by enacting a model law for the state to adopt. Then by the time the military came, it was even the military government. They recognized the individuality of each state, their sovereignty of the region then. And they said, it is your power, but if you want to do it, follow this model. But by the time the military gained power, it then began to centralize personal income tax administration, began to unify the rates. Should income tax be the same across board? People who live in the cities and enjoy all the infrastructure, should they pay the same rates with people who live in the backstage? Should income tax be centralized at all? Okay, if that resonates with somebody, you want to look at it further, because right now, the reform we are doing now is centralized. And you can see all the debate, all the arguments, some states saying no, and then stalling the whole process. If it's a question of a state having plenary power on its tax or taxes, if a state decides to reform its tax system, so be it. Should such a state be constrained by the policy choices of others? So these are some of the issues, So eventually, federal government, the military government centralized. And in 1993, we have Peter. And then despite Peter, we continue to, despite item 59 on the exclusive legislative list, we continue to rely on the regional law until Peter in 1993. Okay? So after that, there was a tax reform, which then culminated in the Personal Income Tax Amendment Act, which is Peter. And I said, some people fall into the error of referring to Personal Income Tax Act as a 2011 act. And I said, no. It is still Personal Income Tax Act, P8, as amended. We have amended the Constitution about 3 or 4 times. You don't refer to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 by the amending act. Rather, you continue to call it 1999 because that is when it was enacted, then as amended. So I took you through the structure of personal income tax. If I were you, I would just scan through them, go through them one by one. What does part 1, what is it about? Part 2, because we won't have time to go through all this. Okay? Then it also has 8 schedules. The first one, residence, determination of residence. Did you discuss residence in details? These are some of the main things we are going to be discussing. Now, somebody may have a house. Let's use Dangote. Where does he live? This guy has a house in Lagos. He has in Abuja. He has in Kaduna. I'm sure he will also have in different parts of the world abroad. So where does he live? Compare it to that of one person who is a peasant or who is a civil servant and has only one. You understand? So when we have a situation where tax is paid to the state where somebody is resident, there may be issue relating to where somebody is resident, especially the expatriates. Okay? We have people who live in Lagos, who fly to the Niger Delta region every day. Some come back daily, some come back every weekend. So where are they resident? And if you have a system where tax is also paid to the state of residence, what about where they work? The equity dimension. Okay? So this is an area where somebody may also want to write. So you now focus on the second schedule and the issue arising. And then you begin to look at the current reform, whether the current reform has captured the concern arising from your observation. Okay, we look at income of settlement, trust, estates. Some of you, okay, trust is even a compulsory cost, equity and trust. I want you to pay very good attention to it because trust is an instrument of estate planning and even tax planning. So we have this elaborate provision, because people tend to use trust to evade tax or avoid tax. So this provision is crafted in such a way that irrespective of what you do with trust, you'll still be liable. But there are people who have never taken a look at it, who just go by foreign literature and then come to the conclusion that a trust income is not liable to tax in Nigeria. That is not true. So somebody may want to look at that. Then the same thing, settlement of for married children. If I have 10 billion and I say, well, I don't know how tomorrow will be, I'm putting half of it, I'm settling out of it. Settlement is you are dedicating, you are earmarking it for them. I'm saying I'll give it to somebody to manage for me in a manner that I can say I'm no longer the owner. So if the tax authority comes and says, we saw this huge amount of money, Prof. I say, no, I'm not the owner. It belongs to my children. It's a provision I'm making for their future. So if you were to be the tax authority, would that be acceptable to you? So there are provisions in the second schedule, part 2, on how settlement of unmarried children should be treated. Then schedule 3, income exempted. This is going to change radically because some of them have become obsolete. Okay? Then retirement benefits. The retirement benefit scheme. So there are conditions before contribution to pension can be deducted, but this provision have been overtaken largely by Pension Reform Act. Capital allowances. This relates to those who are in business. Those who are in business require asset to run their business. Let's assume I'm the owner of this university. I'm going to build. Students will not attend lecture under trees. I'm going to buy computer. I'm going to furnish office. I'm going to beautify the environment and so many things. In business, there's what you call capital expenditure, CapEx, capital expenditure, CapEx, and also operating expenditure, OpEx. When businesses incur capital expenditure, the tax law gives certain reliefs, mainly in form of capital allowance. And the whole idea is to let them deduct in bits over a period of time the cost of that asset. So if I build a building for 1 billion, the tax law over 5 years will say, okay, because you built this building, we know it's going to lead to profitability, it's going to help your business. We will allow you to deduct this 1 billion from your income over a period of 5 years. So it's as if government is partly subsidizing or funding that project. So this is a huge benefit, for businesses. And this is also where a lot of businesses hide so many things. So if you want to do a write-up on that, Sheyi, please be noting all the things that I'm saying people may want to do something on. So be noting them so that at the end of the day, I want to know those who have volunteered to do what, so that we can guide them on how to go further. Then double taxation agreements. I just mentioned Dangote. Dangote lives abroad. His income has been taxed abroad. When it gets to Nigeria, will it be taxed again? Okay? So if somebody is in Lagos and wants a transaction in Abuja, is it going to be asked to pay another tax? Then warrant an authority to enter premises. The tax authority has some elements of police power. For example, a police cannot just go to a house and begin to search it or arrest somebody. An educated person will say, I want to see your warrant. Number one, to confirm that they are authorized and also who they are. So if the tax authority wants to distrain a taxpayer, distrain means colloquially seal up or lock up. They must come with this warrant. And this warrant, where will you see it? The eighth schedule. So each of these schedules contains special provision which normally requires detailed studies on their own. So we shall return to the finance in order to evaluate the extent of the reform. Okay, we shall return to the, okay, this is an error. So basic question, when you are dealing with taxation of income of individual, on what is the tax imposed? Then how is the tax base defined? Then who is the taxable person? In what circumstances is a taxpayer liable to pay tax? What is the tax rate? How is the tax payable determined? What are the procedures for assessment, objection, appeal? What are the offenses and penalty? Then how is it administered? So you answered this by looking at the law, all the various sources of law that I've highlighted to you. Let me see how many people have joined us now. We have 99 of you. Those who are just joining, in your own interest, please come early next time. Don't play with your future. What does it take to log on? You are not taking a bus. You are not. You don't need fuel. All you need is data. So why should it take almost 30 minutes before you join a class? It shows you lack focus. And I sympathize with you, honestly. So don't make sure that this does not happen again. And I'm saying this in your own interest. So administration. So let me quickly go to, I'm just going to skim through this. Now, we have only one personal income tax, but the administration is split into 4. You know, administration means implementation. It means enforcement of the provisions. If you don't come up with strategies, administration is the most difficult. Something that looks easy, everybody can criticize. For example, now, we want you to attend classes promptly because it's very, very crucial to quality assurance. How do we enforce it? How do we administer it in such a way that we achieve our objectives? I don't want to exclude any student from my class. How do I ensure that when we start, if you are 160, we will have minimum of 155. So if we have 4 people who have personal challenges, then we can understand. So I'm going to give your class that responsibility. Help us design how class attendance can be efficient. How I will come to class 5 minutes before and I will see majority of you already logged on. How we will start our class not later than 9:01. Shay, are you up to it? Can I trust that your class will bring up your suggestion on how this can be done, and then let us implement it in my subsequent classes? Can I trust that your class will get back to me over the weekend on how to implement so that you can understand what administration means? In my physical class, I'm going to say that, please put off your phone. If your phone rings, I'm going to seize it. Before I finish, somebody's phone will ring. Oh, I will say, okay, I forgive you. No problem. Everybody bring. You see that no matter what I do, no matter how much I try, there will still be violators. And when we say, oh, don't beg, you know, we all made this rule together. People will come and be crying. People will send their parents. They will send colleagues and all that. So I want you to understand the nuances of administration and for you to understand the challenges. So that before you criticize, you also take into account the complexity of human beings that we are dealing with in the society. So tax administrators now decided to break administration into 4. Direct assessment relates to those who are in trade and business. Pay as you earn relates to people like us who are employees. Withholding tax relates to those who are investing. Then presumptive tax relates to those who are in the formal sector. Okay? Direct assessment, you won't find it in the statute. Okay? It's a term of art in the tax balance. But you are not going to find it. It just governs or relates to those who are self-employed. You know, those who are self-employed, they have capex, they have opex. They are employers of labor, they must pay salary, they must buy fuel, they must maintain their office, you know. Workers will ask for they will ask for increase, so many challenges. But I tell you, that is where the real money is. If you are not in trade or entrepreneurship is very, very important, even for us as lawyers. And under my watch as the dean, we are going to expose you to entrepreneurship so that you even be able to manage your business better, so that you can do better than us. You can know that businesses keep record. You can know that businesses also have social responsibility, even to their staff, so that you don't make all the money and spend it. Businesses also pay taxes so that you can put things in place. I met the Vice Chancellor of Pan-Atlantic University. We sat at the same table at a program. And then it was kind of trying to encourage me to sign up for their MBA. We were saying that, look, they were honoring some lawyers whom the organizer referred to as the forebears in commercial practice. And he said, this, and this came for their MBA program in their school at this time. You know, those people were ready to invest, the kind of investment that the generation of lawyers before them did not bother to. For example, they got accountants. You know, they are lawyers. They got accountants to keep their books. And you know who those accountants were? The big four. PwC, Deloitte, Ernst & Young, and KPMG. They got one of them. And eventually, you know what? Because those firms know them and they know they are well organized, anytime people ask them, which law firm do you know in Nigeria that can, they end up recommending them. So they invested, but it paid off. So some of you may start as employees in firm to understand how this works and all that. But ultimately, it's also a worthwhile goal to say that I want to own my business. I want to run my firm. I want to do it in partnership with others. Salami Samsidin can team up with SMA Chineku Joy and Dolamide Fasui and say, let's come together. That's how Aluko Oyebode, Ajumogobia, and Okeke, that's how they all came together to form. So pay as you earn, those who are in employment. Now, direct assessment entails many things. Many things. Number one, the tax authority must have a list. You must have a reliable list. The current tax reform is saying, let us exempt those who are earning minimum wage. Why? Because there's no point taxing those people. They have very little even to cater for themselves, so that they can concentrate on those who have. In the world, you know, go and read about Pareto theory. And I want you to please contribute here. So you can unmute once I ask this question, so that raise your hand electronically so that I can identify you. Pareto theory says that 80% of the wealth in the society are controlled by 20%. Why 20% of the resources in the society are controlled by 80%. So it's 80-20. For example, in this, it applies to everything. In this class now, you see that 80% will keep quiet, while 20% will dominate it. In prison, 80%, will be compliant. 20% will be the one organizing jailbreaks. So it applies to many things in the society. Even in the family, you can just see that somebody may be the one carrying the burden for everybody. In Yoruba, they call it Ogoebi. Or if they said they need to contribute certain amount of money, people will they will even say she should go and do it, or she should go and do it. So now, if you are a tax administrator, which of these will you concentrate on? 20% controlling 80 or 80 controlling 20? And why? So you can raise your hand electronically so that I can recognize you. Can you people hear me? Okay, Peter, yeah.
Good morning, Prof.
Yeah, good morning. After that, read one, yeah.
Well, I don't know whether it's actually appropriate for me to speak first. I'm taking this course as an elective.
If it is to the question that I asked, I want answer to my specific question, yeah. So
Okay,
you can
fine,
speak,
fine,
please.
So,
Yeah.
This Pareto theory, 80-20 ratio, has demonstrated 20%, 80% of wealth in the society belongs to 20% of the society. So 20% of the society controls 80%. In like manner too, we can call the 20% the dominant minority of the society. Because endowment of enterprise, I would not want to say it does not belong to everybody, but you have people who go out of their way to be entrepreneurs because of their own peculiar personal advancement. So I would suggest, and I agree, that we concentrate on our efforts on the 20% of the society that has 80% of the wealth of the society, instead of wasting our time on the majority that really have not much to give to the society.
All right. So read one. Is your answer different from that of Peter?
No, sir, it is not. I agree with Mr. Peter.
Okay.
Yes,
so why?
I believe taxing 20% would enable the government fulfill the basic objective of tax, which is to generate revenue for its policies and programs.
Okay. Even beyond that, other objectives of taxation. Okay, Oyinkan, let's hear you. Please, can we stop it there? Dipo, I want you to intervene on another issue.
Okay.
Or let's even batch Oyinkan. Let me continue, please. So there are other advantages, and I will want you to check the threshold in other countries. Threshold is like the basic level of income before tax will begin to be imposed. There's no point taxing poverty. So if you know that, for example, personal income tax, VAT, CGT, even stamp duties. Stamp duty is a tax on documents. That means you generate documents which may be used in the course of proceedings The law will say, okay, pay tax on it. But you can't say all documents should pay, people should pay tax on all documents. It will be counterproductive. So there is a basic policy behind threshold, part of which is based on the principle of de minimis. If something is likely to bring in little, and then you exert a lot of effort to get it, you are just to, let's say, let it go. You are a big man. You are sending your driver to go and buy fuel. You want to micromanage it to make sure that it doesn't cheat you. You are not going to live long. Or you have a business, you know people will steal. Are people not stealing Dangote's money? Is it still not the richest? There will be fraud. There will be this, but you must just know that, okay, plus or minus, you know. So I'm happy you get that. Will it surprise you to know that the tax system currently is focusing on the 80%, while the 20% is are able to escape tax? Why? Because the structure of our tax system. So if Dangote says, I'm not illegal, and I want you to look at this from the perspective of JB Daudu and the FRS. Have I mentioned that case to you before? JB Daudu and FRS. JB Daudu made a lot of money from a transaction. The tax authority got to know, and then FRS now, EFCC now pursued him. FRS now served him an assessment. So number one, you begin to say that, look, EFCC has no power relating to taxation. Then two, he said that FRS has no power over him because although he has an office in Abuja, he lives in Kaduna. He lives in Zaria, and he was able to get Kaduna Revenue Authority to support him, to say, oh, he's our resident, he pays tax to us. So you see that the structure of our tax, I want somebody to look at the structure of the personal income tax. And I also want somebody to look at all these arguments relating to, the focus, the threshold in personal income tax, and then the focus under the tax reform bills. So this is what happens in personal income tax, because the object is to tax income, the global income. So if you live in Lagos, Lagos will have authority to tax your global income if you make money abroad, okay? But the question is, how will they know? Lagos has no power to enter into international agreements. Without agreement with other states, Lagos will not know the income that its residents may be earning in other states. So you see that this calls for collaboration. And this is part of the reason why the new tax reform is saying, let us have a joint revenue board. Presently, we have a joint tax board. We have joint tax board, but the scope, the framework is very, very slim or very, very lean. So it has no power to do so many things that will actually help the member states and also the entire tax system. Okay? Then, after you have determined the aggregate income, issues may come. Oh, are you in trade? Are you in business? Because there are income that people may earn, and then they will argue that it's not a trading income. You must have heard about the case of Cape Brandy, Cape Brandy Syndicate, and IRC. a group of accountants who are members of a society started mixing drinks, and they discovered that the flavor was very good. So they started encasing them, selling them. So when they earned money and the tax authority asked them to pay, they said, no, we didn't do this for profit. We are not doing business with it. You know, there is a friendly society trying to, and they said, no, we have all the indices of trading in this your venture. So it is liable to tax under income tax. Okay? So issues always arise whether somebody is trading or not. That is why we have badges of trade. Badges of trade are they are indices of trade. Now, traders advertise, traders invest, traders make profit, traders employ, traders promote. So there are so many badges. And in England, when they set up a royal commission to look at this, because everybody will always say, oh, it's not a trading income. Let me give you an example. If World Cup is taking place in a particular continent, and I travel there, and I buy about 20 or 200 balls, and I start selling it, and I'm making profit, and I make a lot of money from it. Have I traded? If they come and say, oh, I'm the dean of law, no, are you suggesting that I'm now selling football? I'm now selling sports hardware, and you know, so issues like that may arise. Compared to a situation where I bought the same type of, I was giving out it free. Look at a church or an NGO that has a hall that is letting it. There's a case of Shodipo and the FBIR. So the Methodist Church has a property in Lagos Island called Wesley House, and it was earning rent from it. The tax authority asked the Methodist Church to pay tax on it, and then Methodist Church said, no, we are a charitable organization. We use what we get. And the tax authority, the body of appeal commissioner held that is application of the money, that you made this money through trading. Those who are into property, this is exactly what they do. So look at schools. You know, all these, some of you went to those schools where they charge 2 million per semester. Don't let me faint. Where they charge 2 million per semester. Some of you went there, and then they will claim that, look, they are not doing business. So what are the parameters of doing business? Somebody may want to look at that. Then also, if you make money from vocation, you like betting, and I know that some of you are betting, you like gambling, gambling may have negative connotation. So the promoters of this trade, they are now calling it gaming. They are trying to rebrand it. They are trying to package it. They call it gaming. Okay? So somebody may want to look at different types of games, different types of sports that people put money on. So should tax authority collect money when you put 1 naira and you gain 1 million? So should tax authority tax that type of income? If you know you are very good into gaming or form of gaming, I want you to look at it and then look at how gaming income are taxed. Okay? Even those who are sex workers in some other countries, they recognize that they are doing legitimate business and that they must also contribute to the society. You take part in Big Brother Africa, you make a lot of money, you know. So after aggregating all the income, you now deduct exempted income. Where will you find exempted income? Under the third schedule and the sixth schedule. Then deductible expenses. This is OPEX and CAPEX. OPEX, expenses, deductible expenses, money that you have to expend. Let's say a law firm, you have to at least pay salary, you have to clean your offices, you have to paint it, you have to do this, do that, buy stationaries, buy toiletries, buy this, buy that, buy fuel, you know. Taxpayer will want to deduct everything. We even want to lie about it. So that is why the tax law says you can only deduct when it is only exclusively, necessarily, and reasonably incurred. Each of these has a meaning. Okay, there is a debate among writers on whether the four mean two, and so on and so forth. And there are Supreme Court decisions on this in the case of Shell and FBIR, which all literature confirmed was wrong. But is it? You know, so the current tax reform is trying to intervene in this area by making it liberal and more an objective base. And then the basis is that, look, business people don't incur expenses without basis. We should not second guess their reason. For example, in America, out of about 1 million businesses, less than, remember again, Pareto theory, less than 5% may survive. Out of this 5%, you may have 10 that will now become unicorn. And when I say unicorn, they make income all over the world. So they encourage innovation, they encourage entrepreneurship, they encourage people to be audacious. There are loss. Once you can say, oh, I suffer loss. Look at the oil businesses. Some of them suffered losses for 20 years before they started winning oil. So there is when you hear that the current tax reform is more friendly, is more business friendly, this is a dimension to it. Okay? Then allowances. Capital allowance is very, very complex. So the reform is going to liberalize it. Then also losses. If a business person has made loss in previous years and he starts making profit in the current year, he will be allowed to relieve the losses of the previous year. So I want somebody to look at capital allowance, somebody to look at deductible expenses, somebody to look at exempt income, you know, somebody to look at gaming, all types of sports, somebody to look at badges of trade. Okay? Did I mention losses? Okay, when all these things have now been deducted, you also deduct exempt income. We used to have minimum tax. So if at the end of the day, there is nothing to tax, they will say, go and pay 1% of your gross income. So the issue is, on what basis are you going to tax somebody with no chargeable income? So minimum tax is also going to yield, it's going to give, it's going to go, because that means you are taxing capital. If I'm in trade and I do not make profit, I've kept proper record, and at the end of the day, you are saying I should pay tax whether or not I make profit. That means you are taxing my capital. And the president has said that he does not want people to tax. He does not want us to tax capital. Then consolidated relief allowance. I'm sure Dr. Bayemi has told you that it is 200 naira or 1% of gross income, whichever is higher, plus 20% of gross income. You must be able to calculate that. 1% of gross income plus 20% of gross income, that will be the allowance. And the whole essence of taking this out is to reduce the burden of income tax on the taxpayer. If I make 10 million and you tax the entire 10 million, my tax rate will increase. But if you say, I'm able to take 1% of 10 million plus 20% of 10 million, that means 21% will be tax-free, meaning that I will now pay tax on 79%. So the effect of reliefs are to lessen the tax burden, also to be fair to taxpayer, and also to give the tax system a human face. So the residue, which is chargeable income, is now subject to tax at this rate. The first 300, I know Dr. Bayemi has done this. And if somebody's chargeable income is 5 million, by the time you hear chargeable income, it means all the deductibles above had already been taken care of. So you don't need to deduct anything further. Just subject it to first 300 at 7%, next 300 at 11, next 515, next 519, next 1.6 at 21, anything above 3.2 at 24. This band will change under the current tax law reform. How many more minutes do I have? Okay, like 20 minutes. Okay. So now, after that, you now have assessment process. All what we have considered previously is the legal framework of determining how much the taxpayer is liable to pay. After you have determined how much you are liable to pay, you know it. How do you now do it? You do it by filing what we call by filing return. Return is an official document where a taxpayer is supposed to declare all his income from all sources. When you travel and you're about to enter into the country, they'll say, do you have something to declare? Do you have nothing to, if you have nothing to declare, go. You have something to declare. You are carrying all those stuff that we carry when we are traveling. So you go there and say, this is it. They will check whether it meets the regulation of the, if it doesn't meet it, they will confiscate it, destroy it. So a taxpayer is supposed to disclose everything, failing which it is tax evasion. You can see the seriousness. If we enforce this, those who are making income among you, who have never filed a return, you're on the wrong side of the law, for which you can even go to jail. Okay? So businesses are supposed to keep their records. Then when they file, they are supposed to pay what by their own assessment is payable. This is what you call self-assessment. You know, because you know your circumstances, and there is also an assumption that you do the right thing. To what extent is this true? How many of you are doing the right thing? How many of us are doing the right thing? How valid is that assumption in Nigeria? You see, in some other countries, they have come to terms with the fact that people will not disclose everything. They will disclose what you think you can track or trace. So what tax authority in other places do now is to leverage technology to know as much as possible. So if I know that read one, hence $1 billion by, leveraging all the databases relating to income. I know he has 10 accounts. He's on the board of this company. This is where he eats. He goes to this club every weekend and he spends this amount of money on the gyration and all that. Why am I going to ask him to file anything? So in some other country, they'll just say, read one, this is your tax assessment for the year. So if you want to dispute it, you can. Okay? And say, no, the money belongs to Oyinkan or belongs to Professor Sonny. It's not my money, they brought it, Then you will lead us to Professor Sonny who has the money so that they can ask him to pay. So which one do you prefer? This one, self-assessment, or then whatever the taxpayers submit will be reviewed by the tax authority, and then they usually ask for more documents. They will ask, go and bring more documents, this and that, before they now either agree or give additional assessment. Okay? So tax authority may also assess. And where they request for information which you are not able to give, they can give you BOJ. BOJ, best of judgment assessment. There are rules relating to BOJ. Okay? There are rules relating to assessment. I want somebody to look at assessment, issues relating to assessment. I want somebody to look at best of judgment as a concept. Okay? Then, best of judgment kicks in where a taxpayer keeps no record and the tax authority is not able to determine the tax payable. So objectively, the tax authority look at the circumstances and then impose an amount. But there are rules relating to that. There are situations where the tax authority have imposed what the judiciary considers as arbitrary. Somebody paid 1 million last year. This year, you say you should go and pay 20 million. They said, look, you must have evidence that he has earned something so huge within this period for you to move from 1 to 20. So in levying best of judgment, tax authority must not be capricious or vindictive. There is a case that was handled by my firm on best of judgment. In that case, the tax authority, the judiciary wanted to whittle down the scope of best of judgment. It was a case against LIRS. I read it and I felt the judgment was wrong. And I reached out to the chairman. I said, if you don't fight this, it's not going to augur well for tax administration. They said we should go and fight it. We fought it and we won. I think it's the case of outsourcing. LIRS versus outsourcing. LIRS versus. I asked you to consult a compendium of tax cases. If you open the book, you see not less than 30 cases on best of judgment. By the time you read it, you know how best of judgment works. Then after that, SBI will request for additional information. Okay, objection. The taxpayer can now object. Objection means the taxpayer is saying, I disagree. And there are rules also governing objection. I don't agree. I'm not liable to pay tax. I'm not resident in your state. I've paid my tax to other states. So there are various grounds on which a taxpayer can object. Somebody may want to look at it, the various grounds on which people can object. They can say, oh, the arithmetic is not correct. It can be that, oh, they are liable, but not to the extent. So you must give reasons. You are not supposed to, a taxpayer is not supposed to be abusive and then start saying, what are you people doing with the money? Since you've been collecting this money, what are you doing? You know? So, after reviewing the additional assessment, the tax authority may agree and then revise the assessment and say, go and pay. And they may reach an agreement, but if there is no agreement, the tax authority is under obligation to issue NORA, notice of refusal to amend. You know, somebody may want to look at that. So once a taxpayer receives notice of a refusal to amend, it can appeal. An appeal must be within 30 days, failing which appeal will be final and conclusive. Final and conclusive is a concept which we also need to look at more closely. Appeal is final and conclusive when the taxpayer has failed to appeal within the time prescribed by law or fails to object within the time prescribed by law. And the implication is that the assessment will be taken as final and conclusive, meaning that it is not liable to any further review or further reduction. That means the taxpayer will be liable to pay that amount and the court will not entertain any story and say, no, I have this record, I pay. No, you had the it's like add and delete in our system. Or we publish results, we say, come and complain. Oh, I did 2 tests. I didn't do 3 tests. You know, all these things, there are opportunities for it. So if we say, come and complain within certain time, it's because after that period, we are going to process your result to the Senate. And once the Senate approves, it may be difficult. Not impossible though, but it may be difficult. So we want to avoid coming back and forth. So all these processes, after the appeal has been determined by Tax Appeal Tribunal, there can be a further appeal to the Federal High Court, to the Court of Appeal, and to the Supreme Court. You can see that the layer is very, very long. You start from a tribunal, go to the Federal High Court, go to the Court of Appeal, and go to the Supreme Court. Should a tax case travel all this distance, then the issue relating to Tax Appeal Tribunal has raised a lot of issues. Some people are saying Tax Appeal Tribunal was established under a law that established FRS. That why should a federal law establish an agency to which cases relating to the taxes of states should go? So lots of issues. As a matter of fact, some state board of internal revenue had stopped going to TAT. There's also a case that my law firm handled, the case of Skybank and KWIRS, where the Court of Appeal said that the appropriate court for tax appeal was State High Court, not Tax Appeal Tribunal. So somebody may want to look at the issues around tax appeal and the jurisdiction of TAT. So right now, what the current tax reform is seeking to do is to re-establish tax appeal tribunal under Joint Revenue Board Act, a bill. So they want to take it from FRS Establishment Act and take it to Joint Revenue. So does that solve the problem? The National Tax Reform 2016 recommended that there should be a tax court. So what we are doing now, is it the best that can be done? So the person that is looking at that will also. So let me pause and then take Deeper, and who has raised his hand at that time. So do we have any intervention at this stage? Yeah. 11 to 10. Okay. Awesome. Do we have any intervention? Okay, Oyinkan, let's have you.
Okay, sir. Good morning, sir. I just wanted to contribute to the 80-20 rule that we're talking about. So mainly,
Okay, please do. Yeah.
okay, sir. So what I wanted to mention is that there's basically no use in stifling the efforts of poor people. So the basis of taxation should be when a company or an individual has grown or developed, then you can now tax from their profit and not from their income. So I'll give an example that Dr. Taiwo Yedele mentioned. He mentioned that South Africa, that mainly the people that are taxed are those that earn a lot. And then from the lots that they earn, we can now use it to redistribute and regulate the economy. That's what I wanted to say.
That's very beautiful. Now you see that the fact that those who are at the lower rung are making very little does not mean that they should not be captured by the tax authority. The tax authority should capture all of you, even when majority of you may not be making money. There are few of you who are making more money than your parents and us. It may be 1%, it may be 2%. So the tax authority should have visibility about what people are making. For example, let's assume majority of Nigerians are in the tax net. From the tax they pay, they can actually determine who is rich and who is poor. So if they want to give relief to the poor, they don't have to ask them to come and queue. They will just credit their account. That's what they do abroad. During the COVID, they knew those households that needed help. They knew where widows live. They knew where single parents live. And the circumstances, they knew those whose parents were in prison. And if they don't have money, they will just freeze to death. The welfare system abroad is commonsensical. Look at the code. In some places now is -10. So if they don't have money to heat up where you live, people will just be dying. So government must give money to people, including those who are lazy. Some of you are in school now, you are sweating it out. You are learning tax, you are learning this. There are certain things you don't like. There are faces of lecturers you don't want to see, but if you want to move on in life, at least you must be educated. Imagine after you have made, you have climbed the ladder, government will take 40%, 50% of what you earn and give it to some folks who are lazy. I'm saying really, I'm not suggesting that poor people are all lazy, no. But there are people in developed countries who will just live on government. And the state understands. They also will not give you too much so that they don't incentivize you. They want to give you enough so that if you are hungry and you start carrying gun and robbing people. So welfare system built into the tax system in order to identify those who need help. And I want somebody to look at that and look at all the things we have experiences, people, all the social intervention programs, how people go and queue, how there are stampedes, and how it is the federal government doing it, how we are unable to have reliable data. How can taxation help? What role can taxation do? I'm raising all these issues. I just want you to see which one sits with you. Okay, Deepo, let's listen, let's hear you.
Okay, sir. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Sir, I have two issues I want to raise. One is a question, and the other one is like a form of contribution, sir.
Go
So,
ahead.
under the Pareto principle, like I read somewhere that like there were some opponents of the principle saying that if we allow just like the taxation, so like if we allow 10% to control what 80% is doing, they will be at a disadvantage because when those like let's say those people that pay more tax than others, if they are the ones okay, I won't put it now. Okay, let me streamline my thoughts a bit. Okay, what I read was that
State capture.
yes, state captures are yes. For example, like the author cited Elon Musk as an example, like all those American oligarchs. It was like if you allow them to be the ones dictating those things, they might want policies to revolve around what they feel that should be right or should be wrong because they are the ones basically contributing to the state's treasury. So I don't know. I just want to confirm if that's valid or it's not a valid argument, sir.
Okay. What's the second question? Yeah.
So the second one, it's related. It's not really directly related to this topic, but I also read that like during Donald Trump's inauguration, I saw that he mentioned something about an external revenue service, and I saw that the chairman of the fiscal committee he posted that like he made a post relating to President Trump announcing the extra revenue service, and he now emphasized on the fact that Nigeria needs to reform our tax policies so that so that we can also he made some mention of some things I cannot be too particular about it, but he emphasized
Okay.
the ERS has a kind of like impact or influence on what Nigeria is going to do or our relations with other countries also.
All right. You can share that, please. Yeah. So read one. Ishitu. Raimat, you have the floor.
Good morning, sir. I just have a quick question. When you're talking about stage 10 and BOJ, best of judgment assessments, there's a part in your material that was talking about how the tax authority can within 6 years issue an additional assessment. So I just wanted to understand how that was supposed to work if tax is supposed to be done annually.
Excellent question. I'm so happy to hear that. So Raimat, let me start with you. Now, tax is paid yearly, and under personal income tax on preceding year basis. Preceding year basis means in this year, 2025, you pay tax on your income for last year. Because until you close your account in December last year, you won't know whether you have made profit or loss. So they give you a grace of 3 months before you pay. Okay? But if it is pay as you earn, as you are going to see, it's on current year basis. As I draw my salary, tax is withheld, and then my employer is supposed to remit. Let me start with my employer. The tax authority will come and check their records from time to time. So the 6-year rule is a limitation rule that says that, look, if you are going to check the record of a taxpayer and impose additional liability, you cannot go beyond 6 years. You know, normally, if you are evading tax or you have committed a crime, there is no statute of limitation relating to a crime. If you commit an offense 20 years ago and it's just been discovered now, you can be prosecuted. But in taxation, they said, because businesses are generally under obligation to keep their records for maximum of 6 years, they said, if you want to hold a tax authority, a taxpayer liable or accountable for tax default, you can't do it in excess of 6 years. So I want somebody to also look at that. There are plethora of cases on that. And there is also a reform on that. You know, the tax authority used this to tyrannize taxpayers. And then they will be asking them to go and bring all manners of records. And once they are not able to bring that record, they will just slam assessment on them. So that particular aspect of the tax law is being reformed at the moment. Okay? Then now, Dipo, the statement you are referring to was by Bernie Sanders, and he was talking about oligarchy, how the Western world criticize other democracies or other countries as being controlled by kings, by minority. And he said that even in American system, you know, they are actually being controlled by minority, and especially the billionaire club. And he gave example how much they are influencing the society, influencing the system, and now they are also penetrating the power sector. Look at the inauguration of the President of America. All these billionaires were in the room, and they were in the front row. Even those who are governors of states, they are in the other room. That's just how things work in society. And we must begin to teach you that you also need to widen your horizon to be one of the big players in the world. That is what they do for students who are in all these Ivy League. And while they are in school, they are already registering businesses in Silicon Valley. And some of them already have a clear idea of how they can become a world player. And that is why some of them are opt out of school. So when you hear that, oh, he dropped out of Harvard, it's to pursue bigger dreams. Not to, you understand? So the reality in the world is that is how the world is structured. So I won't be able to take any further question. My time is up. So I've given you this assignment, and I want you to come back to me and say, Prof, your next class, before you join us, you also promised to join us 5 minutes before the time. By the time you join us, you'll see minimum of 90% in the class. So I give this to you. Get back to me. Let's see whether we can make this work. All right, thank you.
Prof. Shay,
Yes, sir.
Shay. Look, there is a practical problem. This class just stopped now 11. Hello.
Mr. Sir, go on.
Another class has since started, and the link has been shared. So for those of us who have been having class to class, we cannot join a class by leaving one class to go and join the other one. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Can we talk about this privately?
Okay, we'll talk about it privately. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Hmm? You are doing industrial law now. Is the class on? So, huh? I think we are. I think we are. Industrial law. We never stick enough. What is the meaning of this? We need to stick together. What is the meaning of stick?